On this prequel episode, we have our Die Hard follow-up poll. We're talking about what makes some Christmas movies so bad and previewing Christmas with the Kranks. Hello and welcome back to This Film Is Lit, the podcast where we talk about movies that are based on books. It's a prequel episode. We got all those things I talked about before just a few seconds ago, but first, we have our patron shout-outs. We have a few new patrons and a few Hall of Famers, Academy Award winners. Katie, who are our new patrons?
At the $2 Newbery Medal winners level, we have Azrael. Is how I would say
Azrael?
that. Azrael?
I don't know.
Azrael 139.
Mm-hmm.
And at the $15 Academy Award winners level, we have Mr. Nobody.
Mr. Nobody. Thank you to both of you for being new patrons. Also, if you want to join and be a patron, you can do that at patreon.com/thisfilmislit. We have a $2 level, a $5 level, and a $15 level. Different perks at each. You'll see what those are. The $5 level is the one where you start getting like free extra bonus content and that sort of thing. The $2 level is basically supporting us, but ad-free, early access type stuff. And then the $15, you'll see what all those perks are. Go to patreon.com/thisfilmislit. Our $15 patrons, you already mentioned Mr. Nobody, but we have two other $15 Hall of Fame Academy Award winner patrons. And they are Alina Deletkulova. Hope I did that any bit of justice.
Alina, if you're listening...
How do you pronounce that name?
Chat about the last how to pronounce your name because we really want to get it right.
Kulova. I don't know. I think I might have been close. We'll see.
You were probably closer than I was last time.
And I think last time this was Susan Pevensies was an atheist.
Yes.
I appreciate that this patron is changing their name for each of the patron shout-outs. I love when they do that. This time they are Bruno Radolini. Is really good in Die Hard, and now I have to look up who Bruno Radolini is because I don't know.
I don't know either, but I want it to be the leftover terrorist who clearly dies and then comes back at the end.
It must be.
But I don't know.
I'm Googling it. Oh. It's Bruce Willis.
Is that his real name?
No, it's his musician name.
Oh.
Or maybe it is his real name. As far as I know... that it's his, because there's that he had I mean his name was Walter Bruce Willis and he goes by Bruce Willis, but Bruno is his album. He put out an album and the album's called like The Return of Bruno, and so that must be like his stage name or something, like his music stage name, because when I googled Bruno Radolini, Bruce Willis came up. Oh yeah, it's a mockumentary starring Bruce Willis as his fictitious alter ego Bruno Radolini. So there you go.
All right, fair enough.
I was hoping it was one of the terrorists, but no. All right. So yes, thank you. And again, Mr. Nobody. So thank you to all of our patrons. Like I said, patreon.com/thisfilmislit. Let's go on and do our follow-up poll for Die Hard.
Welcome to the party, pal!
So we had a pretty good turnout on Twitter. We got 16 total votes, which is pretty good for our polls.
Yeah.
The movie got 15 of those votes. The book got 1, but it was you.
So technically, the movie got 16 votes.
Yeah.
Because I tried to click on movie, and either my browser, I don't remember, I think my browser did the thing where it jumped, like where something will load.
Yeah.
And the things will jump down slightly, and you'll click on the wrong thing. Or I did it on my phone, and my finger just was too big and misclicked it. But I was trying to click on the movie, and I accidentally clicked on the book, so I was the only vote.
You didn't even read the book.
No. I commented immediately that it was a mistake. So yeah, all of the votes were for the movie.
Yeah. Which is not surprising. The movie is kind of universally beloved.
It was the same on Facebook. We only had 2 votes there, but they were both for...
Yeah, they were both for the movie.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, I don't think, have read the book or even knew there was a book.
No.
So... but we did get some comments on Twitter.
Number 1, This Film Is Lit fan, Shelby Sunderman.
Yes,
Suderman.
Shelby Suderman, who I know also read the book and watched the movie.
Yes.
And Shelby said, I went with the movie this time, although there were points that I enjoyed in the book, like the main character using the lights on one of the top floors to signal for help in Morse code.
That is interesting.
Yeah. The top floors still have power at that time because they don't know he's there yet, and I thought it was smarter and less obvious than pulling the fire alarm, which I would agree with.
We discussed that.
I had a little bit of a sticking point with the fire alarm. The scene where he kills the first hostage and the glass cutting his feet were much more gruesome in the book. I would agree with that. The movie's portrayal of Holly was much kinder than the book was of Stephanie.
Talked about that
Yes. Stephanie was supposed to be as immoral and unlikable as her coworkers, with the caveat that she was sleeping with her boss, which could imply she wasn't actually capable of her job, which... Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment given this book's overall treatment of its female characters. Yeah. And lastly, Shelby said, I absolutely loved the scene where McClane runs into Gruber.
In the movie.
Yeah. Power play scenes between hero and villain are one of my favorite tropes. I would have given it to the movie for that scene alone.
There you go. We talked about that scene too.
That was another big thing that I really liked about the movie.
Yep. All right, fantastic. Sounds like you guys mostly agreed. Thank you for everybody who voted, and if you want to do that, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Just search for This Film Is Lit, and you'll find us. The polls are on Facebook and Twitter, but on Instagram we make posts about it where you can comment and you can...
And if you leave an interesting comment, we'll read it. We'll read it.
Fantastic. Great follow-up polls. Thank you. And let's move on and talk about... It's not a learning things segment, but we're going to talk about... Why? Because we're going to go out on a limb and say this Christmas movie is probably not going to be so good. So why are some Christmas movies not good? And why are some of them good? And what's the difference? And why? We're going to discuss.
I kind of wanted to talk about like the line between a good Christmas movie and a bad Christmas movie. I think it's really interesting because I feel like the Christmas/holiday genre really rides this line kind of hard, maybe more than any other genre does.
It's possible. Maybe horror movies would be close, but yeah, I think in general, yeah. There's not a lot of like mediocre, like most people either are like this is good or bad.
Yeah.
With Christmas movies and holiday movies. Yeah.
And I feel like Christmas movies, even when we consider them good, they have a lot of elements that we would maybe elsewhere consider bad. Like they're real sappy, you know, they're real cheesy, they're sentimental. We even made that one of our like central themes of a Christmas movie was that like sentimentality. Yeah,
the warm fuzzy feelings.
But we're generally okay with that in a Christmas movie.
Yeah, we want that from our Christmas movies. So obviously taste plays a big role in it, but I think, you know, everybody has their own, like, and we'll maybe get into that here in a second of like what I like in Christmas movies specifically, but that's a very personal thing. But I think one of the, I came up with some things that I think that are things that make Christmas movies bad. So we talked about what makes a Christmas movie in our prequel episode for Die Hard and a little bit in the Die Hard episode. And I think that you can basically, if you want to know what makes a good Christmas movie, that's kind of those, like doing those things that we mentioned well. So like it needs to do those things, but it also needs to do them well. I came up with some things that I think when it stuck out in my head as like these, when I watch like a bad Christmas movie, like this is like the things that stick out to me, which I've watched a fair amount of bad Christmas movies for, good, bad, or bad. Like we specifically go find bad Christmas movies, and it's always these kind of things that kind of stick out to me. There's like three main things. I mean, there's more obviously, but there were like three things that stuck out to me initially. One, if it's a clear like cash grab. So, and now I want to preface all this with these are bad things about movies in general. Like when these are the case, they're just like, if a movie does this, it doesn't matter if it's Christmas or whatever. You'll see it and you'll go like, oh, this is, you know, it's a bad thing about the film. But these three things tend to happen when you notice what a bad Christmas movie, almost always these three things will be a part of the reason why, I feel like. One, clear crack cash grab. Christmas movies have to come out every year because Christmas comes every year. So studios are coming up with a reason to make a Christmas movie, coming up with an idea for a Christmas. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, they need a Christmas movie every year. They don't have a good idea for a Christmas movie every year. So you get lots of stinkers, but they're just trying to cash in on the fact that it's Christmas and we have to put out a Christmas movie. There's no time for putting out a fantasy movie. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's the blockbuster season and all that sort of stuff, but like that's not a specific type genre that has to be.
Yeah, there's blockbuster season, but you could put out a blockbuster at another time of the year.
Yeah, and you could also put a blockbuster out of many different genres.
Yes.
It can be a comic book movie, it could be a sci-fi film, it could be a fantasy, it could be Lord of the Rings, it could be a comic book movie, it could be Star Wars,
but
whatever.
You're not putting out a Christmas movie in the middle of June.
Not usually.
Or April.
It happens occasionally, but not usually. So, they have to come up with something every year, so that kind of limits it, adds on to the fact that they're just trying to cash in on the season. Mm-hmm. One of the ways they try to cash in is by casting like some vaguely washed up big names as in the lead roles that are like attention getting, but that they can also get for like not a ton of money. People like your Tim Allens.
Yeah.
Or your Jamie Lee Curtis's in 2005. Now she's had a bit of a resurgence, you know what I mean? But she's
doing better these days.
Yeah, but like Jamie Lee Curtis, she was big in the 80s and the 90s and the 70s, Halloween. And then she was big in True Lies. And she's a very big actress. But like in the mid 2000s, she wasn't like knocking it out of the, wasn't doing a ton of like big roles and that sort of thing. Same for Tim Allen, big in the 90s.
Yeah.
Home Improvement, blah, blah, blah. After Home Improvement, Tim Allen wasn't doing a lot. Santa Claus movies.
You would think after the Santa Claus, he wouldn't want to be in any more Christmas movies, but...
Yeah. But that brings me to my second point, is that, so it's relatively cheap to get them because while they're big names that appeal to family families and parents and like, oh, Tim Allen, I remember Home Improvement, that sort of thing. Yeah. It feels like, those kind of people that they're market tested for the market a Christmas movie is going for.
And then you can get like even more B-list when you get into like made for TV movies. Right,
yes. You get your Mario Lopez's and your
home release
and
movies.
And your Dean Cain's and all of those things. Your Gary Valentine's.
Cameron Beer.
Yes. That's a whole different thing. But and then on top of that, like you said, those actors then you can tell are completely phoning in their performances. Mm-hmm. And it's very clear that they're just there for the paycheck. Because they don't have any desire to be. It's not they're not going to go win an Oscar.
It's not a passion project.
They're not going to win an Oscar for Christmas with the Kranks and so they're there. They might be having, some of them might be having more fun than others, but you can kind of tell a lot of times that they're here to get paid. Mm-hmm. And it's a movie we did on Good, Bad, or Bad a few years, last year, 2 years ago was, and now I can't remember the name of it. The one with Matthew Broderick and Danny DeVito.
That's the one that I always want to call Jingle All the Way, but it's not Jingle,
Jingle All the Way. Is the Arnold Schwarzenegger one. I can't remember what it's called, but Katie's looking it up.
I've got you.
But there are a lot of performances in that feel very phoned in. Matthew Broderick in particular.
Deck the Halls.
Deck the Halls.
That's why I always want to call it Jingle All the Way. They're song titles.
Yeah. Very phoned in performances in that movie. A couple actors are having fun with it, but you can tell they're mostly there to get paid for this Christmas movie that they know will. And that's the thing. The reason they can pay these people a little bit of money, but not a ton, is that they know the Christmas movie will make its money back because on Christmas Day, a bunch of families are going to go and see it in the theaters because it's the Christmas movie that's out that year.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Second thing. Lazy storytelling. Lots of things can go into this. The big one for me is when you're just recycling and reusing older Christmas stories from better Christmas movies and putting slap a new coat of paint on it and brush it out the door. And now there are exceptions to that, like there's with everything. Not every remake's bad or anything like that. And a lot of them, though, aren't even remakes. They're just sort of vague reimaginings of the same kind of... there's a million versions of It's a Wonderful Life that aren't remakes of It's a Wonderful Life, but kind of are.
Which, and I mean, I would half counter, because I think you're right. I would half counter that all storytelling is rehashing the same stories.
No, I agree.
But I think the difference is, like, it is quality and how much effort you put into making it something that is exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, I you're right. What's his name? The Hero's Journey, blah, blah, blah. There's 7 stories or whatever.
Joseph Campbell.
Yeah. There's, 6 stories or whatever it is. I don't disagree that all, every story is recycled and everything's a remix. I'm not disagreeing with that. It's just, it's very easy to tell when something is a very lazy recycling.
Right.
And Christmas movies tend to be very guilty of that compared to other things that will recycle, reimagine ideas.
Yeah.
And now, obviously, there are Christmas movies that do it well, but yeah. And then that kind of brings me to, like you said, the part of the lazy storytelling, but I think it's a slightly different category, is that the Christmas movies try to be too broad. They try to appeal to too much of an audience. To
everyone.
Because it's a Christmas movie that comes out at Christmas time that they want everybody to bring all of their family to go see. They tend to be, because they're almost always, vaguely like happy comedy, vaguely comedy, vaguely drama, like, uplifting type things. They tend to try to appeal to everyone, so they end up appealing to almost no one.
Yeah. No, I agree.
They're broad. Christmas movies are broad by their nature, but when you're trying to sell your movie to everybody, they end up so broad they become boring and uninteresting, and the humor appeals to, like, I don't know who, like maybe my racist uncle. Other than that, I'm not sure who they're shooting for. They don't want to offend anybody.
Yeah.
But they also...
Yeah, it's bland. I mean, you're appealing to, like, your middle-aged, vaguely Christian white lady.
Yeah. So they don't want to offend
Sorry,
anybody. But...
middle-aged, vaguely Christian white ladies.
Right.
But...
They don't want to offend anybody, but as a result, they end up offending, like, a lot of people. Like, it's... You know what I mean? They're just... And I think that's a big result of a handful of things. One, they're not spending a lot of time in the writing process, and they're trying to appeal to a million jillion different people. So those are the 3 big things to me that stick out as, like, whenever I watch a bad Christmas movie, almost always those 3 things seem to be occurring in my experience. But
well, I would trust your experience. I haven't seen a ton of what I would call bad Christmas movies. I don't often watch the good, bad, or bad movies with you. Sometimes I do.
Yeah, pretty rarely.
But you do a lot of that on your own time.
Yeah.
But I do like Christmas movies. I grew up watching, like, we had a handful that we watched every year. And then that list tends to grow as you find more stuff that you like. Only around Christmas, though. I'm not the kind of person that, like, sits around in the summer and watches Christmas movies. But
I don't trust these people.
I have I think kind of 2 main thoughts about what makes a quote-unquote good Christmas movie. Okay. And these are pretty broad things, but we can talk about it a little bit. The main thing, like we've brought up, is the writing. I think you have to put enough effort into making your story as fresh as it can be in order to have an audience feel like they're watching something that is both new and yet also familiar. Yeah. Because familiarity, I think, is an important aspect of a Christmas movie. I mean, that's where we get that sentimentality from, right?
Yeah. It's because the Christmas movies trade on nostalgia.
Yes.
In the first time you watch them, they're trading on your nostalgia. Like they're selling you nostalgia. Whereas, like certain movies, you watch them years later and you love them because of the nostalgia. Christmas movies want you to feel that the first time you watch the movie. Yeah.
And I think that's fair. I mean, everybody kind of wants to feel like a kid again at Christmas,
Yeah.
But I think you have to put enough time and enough effort into that writing or even rewriting process. I mean, It's a Wonderful Life is something that stands on its own, but it's also arguably a rehash of A Christmas Carol. You know?
I mean, essentially. Yeah.
But there was enough time put into it, into rewriting it, into rehashing it, that it ended up its own thing. Yeah. Which is cool. Mm-hmm. And then I think another thing that helps make a good Christmas movie, not that you can't have a good low budget Christmas movie, but if you're gonna do any kind of special effect, you kind of need to throw enough money at it.
This is very true. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely their fair share in modern day, specifically with CGI and that sort of thing. Yeah. Whereas previously, I'm sure it even holds true just with more practical effects back in the day. But for sure, in the current day, because magic tends to be a big part of Christmas movies, doesn't always, but often if you're dealing with Santa or reindeer or that sort of thing, there tends to be some element of like CGI involved with that, and it can be very cheesy and bad very easily. Yeah. If there's not enough money put into it. So
yeah. And that is the thing that I find interesting about Christmas movies in general, is that line is so fine and so thin that like if you breathe too hard or make one teeny tiny wrong move, it catapults your whole movie into the bad category.
Yeah. It's interesting. I would say that I think there's a when we were going to do this movie in place of Christmas with the Kranks, but it was the first thing that jumped to my mind in terms of one that I think kind of rides the line where I know some people don't like it and some people do, is like Polar Express. Mm-hmm. I've never seen it.
I've never seen it either. I think a lot of people find the stop motion, like the motion capture, creepy.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, whereas that's kind of what we're talking about with the CGI type of thing, and now they put a bunch of money into that movie.
Was it the technology just
I think it was just technology at the time was just right on that, it's the uncanny valley level of, it was right at a place where you could kind of make humans look...
It came out kind of uncomfortable.
Kind of came out uncomfortable, but... So that's riding that line, but there seems to be plenty of people who are able to look right past that and don't care about it at all because it plays on TV all the time. It's our local theater is showing it as part of their like run of Christmas movies with Christmas Vacation and The Grinch, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Like all the like classic Christmas. It's a Wonderful Life. All these classic Christmas movies. They're also showing Polar Express in that run.
Well, yeah, and I think we take taste into account the same way we would for any other genre. Yeah. But I think more so than any other genre with Christmas movies, we have to take it back to that nostalgia thing, too. Because people are going to feel nostalgia for what they grew up with, regardless of whether or not it's a quality piece of work.
True, absolutely. And just because I mentioned it earlier and I did want to talk about it specifically, and I think it's an important element of it, is like you mentioned, personal taste. Yeah. Because like for me, I enjoy a lot of different Christmas movies, but the ones that really work for me, because I'm not religious, because I don't identify at all with any sort of the vaguely like spiritual, not even vaguely, any of the explicit or vaguely spiritual elements of Christmas movies, the ones that work for me are the ones that are about family, that are ones that are about coming together with people and the joy of giving during the Christmas time, and that a lot, and the ones that I like. One of my favorite Christmas movies is A Christmas Story, and that it applies hard in the nostalgia, and not even nostalgia from a time I'm from, but just anybody can watch that and feel nostalgia for the time they were a kid.
For being a kid on Christmas morning.
Yeah. But the relationship with your parents and wanting this thing, and there's commercialism mixed in. There's all kinds of elements to A Christmas Story, But none of them in A Christmas Story are anything to do with religion or God, really. Like, there's a vague mention to it, but not really. It's about Santa Claus. It's about that sort of thing. And so those are the ones that work the most for me. But even that being said, I can still appreciate movies like that do kind of have that element, like It's a Wonderful Life, I think, because overall the message in It's a Wonderful Life, while they're like angels and stuff, is more to do with like making sure you live a good life and that you are important to other people in your life and that sort of thing, and appreciating your life.
I'm a sucker for that kind of story too. I'm not super religious. I'm more spiritual. Yeah, I think, but also Christmas is really Yule. Yeah, and Yule is about brightness during the darkest time of the year. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I'm saying you won't get no argument from me. I'm aware of the history of Christmas. I've heard it from my dad a million times. But no, my point was just that a lot of, regardless of what the actual history of and what Christmas is that a lot of Christmas movies, because they're made in America about Christmas in America, that is in America, 80% of the people are Christians or whatever. Yeah. Tend to have a Christian bent to them. But anyways, yeah. My favorite Christmas movie, as you all well know, if you listen to our show and have been listening to our show, is A Muppet Christmas Carol. It's not Christmas until I watch A Muppet Christmas Carol.
It's one of my favorites.
I'm also a sucker for the classic Rankin Bass TV specials. Rudolph and Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Year Without a Santa Claus is probably my favorite one of those. Yeah. And that's all wrapped up in nostalgia. Yeah.
Those are okay. I like those fine. I'm a big fan. Christmas Story is probably my favorite. I say probably. I can't imagine what else I would put above it. I also do really like... what was the first one you said?
Muppet Christmas Carol.
Muppet Christmas Carol is up there. I like a lot of the different Christmas carols. I think the message in them overall is pretty good. And I like all of them. We've talked about that on our Muppet Christmas Carol one. I'm a big fan of the Patrick Stewart one, just because I grew up a Star Trek fan and I like Patrick Stewart. But Muppet Christmas Carol, I think, is probably a better movie than that one. And Christmas Story, and I like the animated Grinch movie a lot.
What's a Rankin Bass one?
The animated Grinch is Rankin Bass.
Yeah. I mean, okay, people connect the name Rankin Bass with like the puppets like Rudolph and that.
Yeah, the stop motion.
Yeah, the stop motion. But like Frosty is also a Rankin Bass Christmas special, and I'm pretty sure the animated Grinch is.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, for a while there, they were putting one out every year, so they had to do something. Yeah. There's also a lot of like lesser known Rankin Bass. Like my sister and I watch Jack Frost every year.
Yeah, you do.
It's like half an hour long. Deal with it.
I know. It's just it is very short. Yeah. It just doesn't do a lot for me, but it is very short.
It's not good, right? Yeah. It's not good the way that like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer or Year Without a Santa Claus are good. But there's a nostalgia factor for us because we watched it when we were kids, you know, so we don't really care that it's not that good.
How the Grinch Stole Christmas was not Rankin Bass.
Oh, well.
It was.
I was wrong.
Those are the directors, right?
That's the studio.
Of the studio. Well,
I think.
I thought that was okay. Well, it was directed by Chuck Jones, who directed a bunch of like the Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner and all that kind of stuff. And so I don't think it's.
Oh well, not that one.
Yeah. No, a lot of other stuff. They did
do animated.
No, they did.
Specials.
There's.
They're just more well known for. Their name is more connected with stop motion.
Yeah, they have some traditional animation, but they did do Frosty's Winter Wonderland, like you said. But no, not the. Okay, I didn't think so, but I wasn't sure. Cool. That was our discussion of good Christmas movies, bad Christmas movies, and kind of our favorite Christmas movies mixed in there. Let's move on and preview Skipping Christmas.
In this friendly little town, there lived an enchanting family named the Kranks. Every year, they would celebrate Christmas together.
Merry Christmas!
Until the year their daughter Blair left for the holidays.
This won't be the same.
Then Luther got a brilliant idea.
We skip Christmas. We'll go bask in the Caribbean sun.
We skip Christmas.
Well, Skipping Christmas is a 2001 comedy novel. Although at 198 pages, I would almost call it more of a novella.
Yeah, it's pretty short.
Yeah, that's pretty short. It's by John Grisham.
I did not realize that when we were going to do it.
Yeah, much better known for his political thrillers. I had never heard of this. I didn't realize that Christmas with the Kranks was based on a book. I went to look it up and I was like, Skipping Christmas by John Grisham.
All right.
Okay, if you say so, Mr. Grisham. So it was published by Doubleday on November 6th of 2001, and it reached number 1 on the New York Times bestseller list by December 9th of that same year. So clearly people were in the Christmas mood.
Yep.
They were in the mood for some John Grisham Christmas stories. Despite that, however, reviewers seemed to feel kind of meh about it, based on what I found. Publishers Weekly wrote, "For all its clever curmudgeonly edge and minor charms, no way does this Christmas yarn from Grisham rank with A Christmas Carol, as the publisher claims. Nor does it rank with Grisham's own best work. The premise is terrific, as you'd expect from Grisham, but as clever as this setup is, its elaboration is ho-hum."
Hold on. For all, quote, "for all its clever curmudgeonly edge and minor charms," end quote, may be the most eloquent way of saying okay boomer I've ever heard. Anyways.
Also, based on, I didn't check this, so take this with however many grains of salt, but based on that quote, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that the publisher made the mistake of comparing this book to another book.
Why would you
First of all, you should never do that. Ever. You're inviting a lot when you do that. But to do that with a story as universally known and beloved as A Christmas Carol?
Right.
What were you thinking,
Right.
Doubleday?
Guys, guess what? This movie I just made? Citizen fucking Kane. Let me tell you.
Yeah, you invite that comparison. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was Publishers Weekly. Entertainment Weekly gave the book a C+, and said, even at 177 mini pages, Skipping Christmas feels padded. Despite a few nicely observed details, Grisham mostly trades in stale fruitcake jokes and sub-Christmas vacation slapstick.
Wow.
Which is pretty savage.
People were fucking mean to John Grisham. He did not have a Merry Christmas that year. I mean, he's dead because he sold a million
his book
jillion
did really
books
well.
or whatever. But
I'm sure he was feeling fine that Christmas. But yeah, the critics, they were not on board.
Not big fans.
So I didn't really find any other like fun facts. But I did come across one thing that made me laugh when I was on Goodreads. So Goodreads has a feature where you can like ask questions about a book. People answer. A lot of people use it to ask like, is this appropriate for kids? Whatnot.
Right, I'm a third grade teacher.
Can I have my class read this,
Right.
or am I going to get angry parents knocking down my doors? But the featured question when I went to the Goodreads page for this book was someone named Kathy asking, is this a good suggestion for a church book club?
Oh, it would be Kathy.
And the answer from Sophie is just, no, definitely not.
All right, well, now you have my attention. You have my attention, Mr. Grisham. Yeah. Definitely not.
So that tickled me.
That's good. That's good. That's it for the book facts. Let's go ahead and talk about the 2004 film, Christmas with the Kranks.
Tim Allen,
Your face. It's like it's frozen.
I got a Botox injection today.
Luther.
and Jamie Lee Curtis. Christmas with the Kranks.
As I said, this is a 2004 film directed by Joe Roth, who's primarily a producer, but he also has 6 directing credits, including Revenge of the Nerds 2 and a film called America's Sweethearts. Those were like the 2 biggest ones, and I mean,
All right.
Revenge of the Nerds I've seen and heard of.
So we're hot out of the gate
Revenge
here,
of the
Joe.
Nerds 2, I don't know what the feelings are
I
on
didn't
that
even
one.
know that movie had a sequel, so...
I think it had 2 sequels. I think there's a Revenge of the Nerds 3. I wouldn't be surprised if there's like 5 sequels. That's one of those titles that wouldn't surprise me if there was a bunch of like in like the 90s and 2000s they made like
They
really
just get,
cheap,
like, steadily cheaper.
like the American Pie series that
Yeah.
eventually were direct to DVD. Like, you know what I mean? There's just like, yeah, wouldn't surprise me. It was written by Chris Columbus, who wrote The Goonies, Gremlins, etc., a bunch of other stuff. He also, more famously, is a director and a producer. He directed Home Alone, Mrs. Doubtfire, Home Alone 2, Harry Potter 1 and 2. He was a producer on the museum movies.
Night at the Museum.
I'm pretty sure, yeah. He might have directed the first. I can't remember now. Yeah. He's directed a fair number of movies we've done because
Yes.
he does that literary adaptation thing. The film stars Tim Allen, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Dan Aykroyd, and a supporting cast of other people. I put Dan Aykroyd on there. He's also technically a supporting actor. It's mainly
Yeah, those
Tim
were like
Allen
the
and Jamie
3
Lee
biggest names.
They're the
though,
3
right?
biggest names, though, yeah. So Joe Roth got an advanced copy of this book from John Grisham. Gave him a whatever that's called when you send somebody an advanced copy to read in like galley.
It's called an advanced copy.
No, it's called a galley book.
Oh, he sent him a
Galley.
Yeah, a galley.
Yeah, that's what it said on Wikipedia. I didn't know what it meant. So, but he assumed that Joe Roth could make a movie based on his books. Which, all right, Grisham, Mister.
I mean, I guess when you're John Grisham.
Sure, but he's like, you should make a movie out of this here.
I mean, his first book was A Time to Kill.
Fair enough.
So
Fair enough. Yes, they deserve to die, and I hope they burn in hell.
we're going to have to do that
Yeah,
someday.
one day. I assume that line's in the book. I've never actually seen the movie. I've just seen that line. Later, Chris Columbus, came to Joe Roth with a script he had written, and he wanted Roth to direct it. And Roth was like, why aren't you going to direct it? And he's like, no, you need to direct it. And he's like, you're Chris Columbus. And he's like, you direct it. And he's like, okay, fine. I feel like Chris Columbus should have directed it, but... I mean, say what you will about Chris Columbus. Some of his movies are quite good.
I think we should revisit that question after we watch the movie.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm just saying, Home Alone's a delightful
Could Chris
film.
Columbus have saved this movie?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. It may be the script,
Yeah.
which Chris Columbus wrote, or he didn't direct Home Alone. He did direct Home Alone. He didn't write Home Alone. So,
We'll try to suss
but you
this
would
one
think
out
that
for
that if
guys.
you directed some good Christmas movie
Yeah,
like Home Alone,
yeah.
you get a feel for like what the elements you need to incorporate. But
And Harry Potter, which have become honorary Christmas movies,
Well, and
according
those-
to the TV schedules.
True, but he did those later. Those were after. Oh no, this was before. You're right.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Harry Potter came out before this movie. All right, boy. Anyways, and they're apparently both super amped to make this film because they both had like been planning since before the book came out to make this movie, which, boy. But I will say, based on the reviews, the book got, maybe they did it perfectly because the movie got equally terrible reviews. So they didn't use the title of the book, which is, like you said, Skipping Christmas. They didn't use it because they wanted to avoid confusion with another Christmas movie that came out in 2004, which was titled Surviving Christmas.
I have no memory of that.
Me either, but they didn't want a Skipping Christmas and a Surviving Christmas, so they changed theirs up. Now we're going to get into the IMDb trivia, so take this with a pound of fake snow. During filming, it was reported that the cast and crew had ingested over 10 pounds of fake snow. There's no way that's a real fact, and how they would ever know it. It's bullshit.
Also,
but it was the first one.
I feel like that would do harm to you.
Well, but yeah, back in the day when they used to use asbestos, yes. Currently, they use like something that's like food grade or something,
okay.
probably. I think...
I guess I was thinking like little bits of plastic or something.
Well, yeah.
That would stuff you up.
I think it depends on, for certain things, see, because this could mean anything. Even if it's true, like it could mean in some scenes, like if they're throwing snowballs at each other's faces, it might be made of like, they could be calling fake snow like they shaved ice.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they used Hawaiian shaved ice and like who knows?
Ingesting all that water.
Other scenes, it could be like literally like potato flakes or something. Yeah. Who knows? But I also just don't believe that trivia fact at all. By the way, don't believe anything on the IMDb trivia facts. It's like 90% fake. That's probably not true, but it's up there. There's a scene in the movie where Tim Allen is stuck hanging from the roof, and why didn't we leave him there? I'll never know. Fuck Tim Allen. You can see one of the firemen get hit in the face with a ladder.
All right, we're gonna be on the lookout.
So be on the lookout for that. Tim Allen's hanging from the roof. Fireman hit in the face with a ladder. Great stuff. Potential casting role. There was like 1 million of these, and this was the only interesting one. Jim Carrey was considered for the role of Luther Crank, who I assume is Tim Allen's character.
Yes. And based on, I've read about half of the book, and based on that, can't imagine Jim Carrey doing it. Tim Allen, I can totally see. Seems like apt casting. Jim Carrey, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, he was considered. He wasn't offered the role.
I don't know.
This is the first Christmas movie of Tim Allen's career not associated with the Santa Claus trilogy. But he's been in 5, so... he was in 5 at the time that the IMDb trivia was written, which who knows when that was.
Yeah.
He may have been in more since then. When the power goes out in the film, Luther, who is Tim Allen's character, asks Vic, who is played by Dan Aykroyd, if he knows anybody at Con Ed. This is a sweet, deep-cut reference for all of you Ghostbusters fans out there. I had to include this fun fact. He asked Vic if he knows anybody at Con Ed. In Ghostbusters 2... Dan Aykroyd's character, Venkman? I can't remember. Oof, don't come at me. It's been a while since I've seen Ghostbusters.
Right.
I think it's Venkman, but I can't remember for sure. They pretend to be, him and the other Ghostbusters pretend to be from Con Ed when they're digging a hole in the street. It's the scene where they find the goo in the sewer. They pretend to be from Con Ed, and so... It's a little nod to that when Tim Allen's like, you know anybody from Con Ed?
Little inside joke.
I like
there.
That's a fun little inside joke. Well done, writers. Finally, and this is a massive spoiler from IMDb. I can't believe they spoiled this. This is normally would be was that in the book? But they slapped it right on the IMDb trivia page, and I was spoiled, and I was so furious. Quote, in the movie, Blair's plane arrives home at 8 p.m., in the novel on which the movie is based, Blair's flight arrives home at 6 p.m.
What? I haven't even gotten there in the book yet. Now it's spoiled for me,
Movie
too.
ruined. Why
Pack
did you
it up,
change
guys.
it?
We can't do this anymore.
Why would you make such just abject changes to the book for no reason? Her plane arrives home right? It's his daughter. Plane arrives home 2 hours early. Can't believe it. I was like, why is this in the IMDb trivia facts?
Hollywood just making changes.
Why would they put this in the trivia? It's so
It's
so stupid. I couldn't believe it was there. I had to put it in the notes. That was all I had for the movie facts. Katie, I realized as I was reading about this movie that I've seen it.
Oh, have you?
Like years ago. I didn't see it in theaters, but I saw it like on TV or something a couple years after it came out. I remember very little about it, but I do, when I was reading the premise about how they decide, and Skipping Christmas is a better title because I remember that Tim Allen decides he wants to skip Christmas because his daughter's not there or whatever, and he's like, screw it, we're going on a cruise. Yeah. Like, we're not doing Christmas. I remember at least seeing some of, if not all of this movie, but I remember very little about the details. Yeah. So,
Skipping Christmas, I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about the story.
Yeah.
Christmas with the Kranks is like, well, who are the Kranks?
Yeah.
Why would I want to spend Christmas with them?
You assume based on the Kranks name that they're like...
Cranky?
Yeah, that it's going to be like a Scroogey type thing. And, it doesn't tell you a lot. But Skipping Christmas is a great title. They should have forced whoever made Surviving Christmas to change their movie title.
Well, Surviving Christmas is a 2004 American romantic comedy starring Ben Affleck, James Gandolfini, Christina Applegate, and Catherine O'Hara.
There you go.
Zero memory of that.
Nope.
Nothing.
Nope, not at all.
And this 2004, this was like right in my wheelhouse of when I would have been interested in bad romantic comedy. This was like
you were
start
like 16,
of high
right?
school. Yeah, like
15?
15.
Yeah.
No memory of this.
Who knows? Anyways, that's going to do it for this episode. Go out. I believe this is on something.
It was on...
Wasn't it on Netflix?
I think we did see it on Netflix.
I think we looked it up and saw that it was on Netflix. I'm pretty sure. So you can check this out on Netflix if you have Netflix.
Or you can go to your local library.
Go to your local library. As we always say, support your local libraries. They really need you. And they do great stuff. So go support your local libraries. And then watch Christmas with the Kranks. We're going to be talking about it in 2 weeks, right before Christmas. Literally the day before. No, on Christmas.
Yeah.
Most of you, patrons, you'll be getting it on Christmas Eve. But most of you will be getting this episode on Christmas Day, which means nobody will listen to it. Last year, when we released our episode like right before Christmas, like we had like no listeners on that episode.
Hey, listen. When you're stuck at your family Christmas,
That's the thing.
and you don't want to interact with your relatives anymore,
Yep.
here we are, waiting to save you.
Your drive home. Maybe you're doing Christmas that weekend.
Yeah.
And you drive your commute back and forth. You're traveling. Check it out. Christmas with the Kranks. We'll talk about it. You can watch it on Netflix beforehand. And until that time, guys, gals, non-binary, and everybody else,
Keep reading books.
keep watching movies.
And keep being awesome.